Should I buy the LUMIX GH6? Talking head alert, a video essay. I think that's the question a lot of us are asking. I know personally, that's the question I'm asking, whether I should buy the LUMIX GH6. Thanks to LUMIX, I've been able to use this the past couple of months, and this GH6 is a very impressive camera. I mean, there's no getting around the fact that the GH6 is a very impressive camera. And you might be asking that question if you haven't already purchased the GH6, especially if you're coming from the GH5 or the G9, any other Micro Four Thirds camera, should I buy the GH6? Now, when some of the rumors started circulating about the GH6, I really thought that the GH6, especially coming from the GH5, and if you've been following my channel, you know that I've been talking about the GH5. I've been using the GH5 really since it came out. I use it for client work and I use it for this channel. I really felt like once those rumors kind of started circulating that the GH6 had to totally blow us out of the water, because the GH5 was such a great camera, so far ahead of its time, that especially with all the cameras that have been coming out, I know Sony and Canon have been putting out some great cameras, the GH6 being a Micro Four Thirds camera really just had to blow us out of the water. Then at the time of the release, I was honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little underwhelmed with the whole GH6 thing. I really didn't know how to feel about it because I felt like LUMIX really missed the mark on some of the stuff that I felt like was valuable to video creators. And obviously the big thing and the big topic of conversation was the autofocus, and they did not change the autofocus system. They improved it, yes, but they did not change it. And I really felt like that really isolated the whole content creator crowd. Now, the GH6 is very much a professional style camera. Now, I really think that's what LUMIX was going for, is more of like a Netflix approved or professional style hybrid camera, and that's what they delivered. So even though I was a little underwhelmed with the overall announcement of the GH6, but after using the GH6 for a little while now, I mean, it is a fantastic, very meaty camera. Can I use the word meaty? Is that weird? But the experience using the GH6 is definitely not underwhelming at all. So here's a few things that I actually really like about the GH6. And some of these things might be a determining factor on whether I'm gonna buy the LUMIX GH6. First of all, using the Vlog color profile on the GH6 has been fantastic. I mean, it is probably, can I go 100 times better than using Vlog L on the GH5? Now, I know a lot of people like Vlog L on the GH5, and that's totally fine. I just never liked it. And it's like a personal preference thing. I mean, if you like it, that's fantastic. I just never have, but I totally would use the Vlog on the GH6. Now, LUMIX has always been really good about the color profiles, the color that you get in your image. It's even better on the GH6 than on the GH5. So I really like the Vlog color profile, and I would totally use it on the GH6 if I chose to buy it. Now, another thing I really liked was that 4K 120. I think the 4K 120 is beautiful, and the image quality that you get with it is amazing. I'm glad that it's like not just a variable frame rate. I'm glad that it's an actual frame rate, for a couple reasons. You get the audio with it, but then also I just feel like it's a cleaner image. And then the fact that it's 10-bit is amazing because you can use Vlog and still get 10-bit 4K 120. Now, I don't use 120 frames that often. I usually use 60 frames if I'm, going for that slow-mo look. But the fact that you have 4K 120 on the GH6 and that the image is so good with that, I really like that. Another thing I really like about the GH6, and like this actually would be one of the reasons if I chose to purchase it, this would be a major factor in that, is that 5.8K open gate. I feel like, for client work that I do, and if somebody wants a quick turnaround social media video, that is the feature that I would shoot in. First of all, you get that 5.8K, which is just so crisp, but the fact that you have that full sensor that you can play around with, vertically, square, whatever that might be, for clients who need that social media content, or for yourself who needs that social media content, that is absolutely the way to go when you go to shoot for them. Now, this part is where I think Lumix was really going for more of that Netflix approved or professional style cameras, that it's basically, the GH6 is basically a fully 10-bit camera. There's a few 8-bit options in there in the MP4, but they're hard to find. It's fully a 10-bit camera. Use it as a 10-bit camera. And I also think this is kind of where they isolated themselves just a little bit with the content creators. Like for me, for a talking head like this, I mean, I don't have to shoot in 10-bit color to really get a good image. I mean, I'm shooting this natural 8-bit 4K. I mean, it looks okay, right? But I think for professional work, for, cinematography, I mean, those 10-bit options are going to be great. Now, there's a lot of 420 and 422 10-bit options. What I found is that they're both great. 420 is a little easier on your editing machine, your computer, whatever you're using, MacBook, whatever. That 420 is just a little bit easier on the machine. But the fact that it's a fully 10-bit camera can be a little overwhelming, but it really provides those professional shoot options. Another reason I really like the GH6, and, probably a pretty good reason to get it, would be the flip screen, obviously, is amazing to have because it flips so many different ways. Another reason, that I'm considering purchasing the GH6 is just some of the future options that you have. I'm surprised they haven't come out already, but that at the time of this recording, but the SSD recording, that's going to be great, especially if you're shooting ProRes on here. But some of those other firmware updates, like the first generation GH5, like you're pretty much done with firmware updates. There might be a few here and there, but it's pretty much just the processing in there can't handle some of those firmware updates. But with the GH6, you're basically future-proofed for a long time. Like the GH6 is going to be a great camera for a long time, and really everything is improved on the GH6 over the GH5. Now, those are just a few things, some of them might be minor, but when I ask the question, should I buy the GH6? Those things come to mind, things that I really like about the GH6. Now, there's a few things that I don't necessarily enjoy about the GH6. One is the CF Express. Using the CF Express has been fine, but, I've got a bunch of SD cards, so I'm just going to have to upgrade and purchase a few more CF Express cards, and that's not cheap. I just don't necessarily love it because I've been used to using SD cards, and sometimes it's hard to get over what you're used to. Another thing that I don't necessarily enjoy about the GH6, and this might be a personal preference thing, but I don't love the dynamic range boost mode. For me, I kind of feel like a dual native ISO might be a little better. I just feel like the dynamic range boost mode, like there's some very, I don't know, maybe limited options and where you can use it. And some of those times that I've been using it, I just feel like it's been a little noisy. Maybe that's something that can be improved on with a future firmware update, but I'm just not in love with the dynamic range boost mode. And maybe after time, maybe that's something that I can fall in love with and get used to. But at this moment, after using it for about 2 months, I don't love it. Other than a couple of those things, I really feel like the positives kind of outweigh things that I don't necessarily like about the GH6. And so should I get the GH6? That's a question that we're asking ourselves. I think that I will probably purchase the GH6 just to upgrade over that GH5. I mean, I think it's time to kind of move on from the GH5. The GH5 has been a great camera. I'll probably still hold on to one just to have around because it's such a great camera. Personally, I think some of those positives about the GH6 and some of the future updates, some firmware updates, the image quality, those types of things, I just think the GH6 right now is a better camera than the GH5. And so at some point, I will probably purchase the GH6. So let me know down in the comments, what are you thinking about the GH6? Have you purchased the GH6 already? And what do you think about it? If you haven't purchased the GH6 already, have you seen enough about the GH6 to kind of make a decision on what direction you might go? That's really all I have for this video. If you have time, maybe stick around, watch one of these videos that's popping up on your screen right here. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.